Welcome to Short Takes, a podcast focused on shining a spotlight onto a brilliant C-level executive with a disruptive platform. I'm your host, Sue Bergamo. Today's guest is Aaron Painter, CEO of NameTag, who'll be discussing human identity and how he's solving this industry gap. Aaron, hi, welcome to Short Takes. I'm so excited to have you here. You have such an interesting product, and I can't wait for the audience to hear all about it. But before we do, I hear you have an interesting fun fact for me. Can you tell me all about it?
Yes, it has to do a lot with travel. I set this crazy goal actually before I turned 30 to visit 100 countries in the world. And I met the goal and then sort of stopped counting. But international sort of travel, life, work, just kind of, I always think of it, the world as sort of a global lens to learn from. It's been a huge part of my life.
That's terrific. I'm with you. I absolutely love to travel and meet so many different people. Quick fun fact on my own, my husband and I bicycle across countries. We've done 6, and wow, let me tell you, it's an amazing way to meet people. All right, let's get off that because we have limited time. Um, you have the most interesting product, and we will dive into that. But tell me about yourself and what led you to become a CEO.
Well, interesting that this was for my second CEO role. I spent 14 years at Microsoft, most of it operating outside of the US. 5.5 years in China, a mix of Hong Kong and Beijing, 4 years in France, a few years in the UK, a few years in Brazil. Focused a lot on, interestingly, new market expansion at Microsoft and helping Microsoft open in new countries. Who was the first person? Who was the third person? How do we transact? What do we sell? How do we work with local governments and partners? And I loved it. I loved the mission of Microsoft. I loved the global scale at which we got to operate. And it just felt like a place where I could have a lot of impact. After though China, I frankly felt like I wouldn't be able to have a more entrepreneurial experience than what I was doing in building the Microsoft business in China. And so I was set out to do something different. And quickly I met these folks at the private equity firm Blackstone. And they had invited me to go into a CEO role for a company they acquired, which was based in the UK. It was a cloud computing consulting firm called CloudReach. And we were essentially AWS's first and largest partner in Europe. We diversified then into Google, GCP, and Microsoft and Azure, built a managed service practice, became Gartner Magic Quadrant listed, invested in some software companies, and really grew that business at this really exciting moment when large enterprises were thinking about how to transition to the cloud. So I had a great time there. I had a great CEO experience in building that business and helping to transform it. But ultimately, I found sort of a gap in the market when I was looking at what to do next. And that gap really had to do with this concept of identity. And early on, we thought, are we identity? Is there a big privacy lens? Are we a privacy company? Are we a security company? And what we ultimately decided is that we were sort of all three at one. We were using identity as a way to improve security at the perimeter. And ultimately, we could do it in a way that was very privacy preserving, both for the end user and for the company. So that's kind of what led really to the birth of NameTag.
That's really interesting. After all the conversations we've had, we never made the Microsoft connections. That's really funny, and I can see it in you now. So yes, we're cut from the same cloth there. Um, and you have solved this industry problem in a very big way. And I always look for disruptive technologies, and this one, holy cow, is like at the top of my list. No disrespect to the other podcast members, but this one I'm just so excited about because you're going to solve the industry in a big way. But tell the audience what it is that your platform is doing and that problem that you're trying to solve.
We've created we call a human identity platform that's ultimately built for the help desk. And the problem that we set out to solve was this knowing who's behind the screen. And so much of the way that we do authentication today is really around devices. It's, are you happen to, do you have a username and password? And then to make that more secure, we've added layers of multi-factor authentication, which typically relies on trusting a device. Are you the holder of this SIM or phone number when to send someone an SMS verification? Are you the holder or do you have access to an authenticator app, perhaps that is, showing some revolving code? Are you holding the UB key that you can plug into the device as a way to make that authentication or login more secure? And all of those methods have various strengths and weaknesses, but they've sort of become the industry standard. Yet what we found is that none of them really reveal who the human is or who the person is behind the screen of that device. And the moments that really becomes relevant are those times when a user, for example, is locked out of their account, or they call an IT help desk, or they call a customer support desk if they're in a customer facing scenario, and they say, hey, I am the user of this account. That UB key you sent me, I lost, or I upgraded my iPhone and the authenticator app didn't transition over, or something just went wrong. And for whatever reason, I am locked out of my account. And typically that becomes then this moment of a human interaction. It becomes a moment when a support rep who kind of went into the business in theory to help people is suddenly turned into this identity detective, where they have to assess, are you really the human that I think is behind the screen of this account? And typically today, prior to NameTag, they really didn't have good tools to make that assessment. It would revolve traditionally around some sort of security questions, or there's an emerging theme now in the world of authentication that companies like Okta refer to as visual verification, which is Okta advises the companies that use Okta at their help desk to launch into a conversation like this. They say, okay, employee, you claim to be locked out or you lost your UB key or something else. Let's have a Zoom call. And that IT help desk person then can say, okay, it looks like your badge photo, who knows how that badge photo was uploaded or created, separate discussion. Maybe, hey, can you hold up your ID in this conversation, a government issued ID? Let me see if you look like the photo on there. And from that, or that point of the conversation, they say, okay, it must be you. I'm going to go ahead and reset access to your MFA and get you back into your account. And the challenge is that the tools and the process which they do that is one, it's time consuming. It wastes a lot of downtime from the employee and the help desk. You often have to schedule that call. Maybe the user is logged out for several hours. So the ROI calculations typically get very high there. But it's still a very fragile process. There's a lot that could go wrong in that human trying to make the assessment. So we focus on automating that. We focus on using modern technology to give that help desk person a better way to assess who that human is, who's locked out, and they can use it at the moment they are seeking account recovery, and they can use it at the moment maybe even when you're setting up a new user and giving them credentials for the first time.
And I've actually seen a demo of the product. It's super easy to use, super easy. And I went to your website, which I typically don't do before any of these podcasts because I like things to be sort of, new. And I saw an area where it said that your platform technology can solve, I'm going to read this, deep fakes, synthetic ID fraud, account takeovers, social engineering, phishing, and new account fraud. That's a disruptor in the industry. And I know I'm putting words in your mouth, but from my perspective, this is a disruptor. So I know we're almost out of time. I'd like to get at least 3 takeaways from you that we can leave the audience with. And what would you say?
Yeah, we're really proud of the technology we have. And there's a lot to talk about in how we do that, taking essentially mobile phones and using modern mobile phones as opposed to web browser-based experiences. It's one of the ways we're able to provide very unique set of security. And by the way, make it feel like a slick mobile phone experience. So there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about there. But the takeaways to your question, I think, are really critical. We're seeing a lot of companies right now essentially do penetration tests of their help desk. And often, we call this social engineering. I actually think what it really is a help desk hack. It is an impersonator who calls that help desk, pretends to be the employee or the user, and socially engineers their way to get account access. So the number one thing I would recommend is that companies do right now a penetration test of their help desk to see what it's like for someone trying to go through that experience. That would be number one to me. Number two, I would try and do a business assessment of actually how often your users are locked out or calling the help desk and the volume of those help desk tickets that are often related to things that require some form of identity verification. Most companies we speak with, it's at least 50% of calls, and it averages up to $70 per ticket. An employee lost downtime, IT help desk time, let alone sort of the risks associated with fraud or potentially getting it wrong. So number one, I would look at it from a security perspective, and I'd say, are we prepared? Do we have the protections that we need? Two, I'd look at it from a business perspective and say, hey, what is this actually costing me today, just in my normal, rhythm of the business type of maneuvers? And the third, I would try and assess the workplace experience. We have so many people in large enterprises that are spent time on making sure you're buying collaboration tools, be it Office 365 or other great things, to try and make those employees more productive. And they're not focusing on this concept of how much downtime happens when you have to call the help desk or something goes wrong. And so thinking about it from a workplace experience perspective. This is sort of my top three tips, I would say, for someone who's trying to learn more about this space.
Those are terrific. Thank you for that. And I'm going to add a fourth, which is if you're using another provider for your authentication and authorization services, this product should be in front of it. And that's just my take. That's my short take today. Because I'm just so enamored with this product. All right. If someone wants to get a hold of you and learn more besides your website, which you can tell them the name of your website, how else do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, getnametag.com is great. A way to learn, a great way, frankly, to spin up an immediate trial and just start using the product. Otherwise, LinkedIn. I'm personally active and love messages, love feedback, comments from people. So please feel free to reach out.
Great. And just one last thing. So free trial on your website?
That's right. Literally, you can spin up and start sending a help desk request as a help desk worker today, and know with sort of certainty who's behind the screen to be able to make more informed decisions when someone is locked out. So it's Lynn, you put in your logo, you put in your company name, and you literally get started same day.
Sounds terrific. Thank you for joining me today on this month's short take. I really appreciate having you here. Thank
I'm a
you.
big fan. Thank you for having me, Sue.